When ChatGPT first launched, the headlines were brutal. Storytellers like me and like you were cooked. AI is going to take your job. Creative work is done. It's over. But what if they got that backwards? What if the more we use AI, the more we actually need storytelling, the more valuable it becomes? And what if there's actually science that backs up that claim? Well, luckily for you, that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's episode. Welcome to the Storytelling Lab, where filmmaking, brand, and business all collide. My name is Bennett, a filmmaker and an author, and for over 2 decades, I've studied how stories actually work on the screen, inside organizations, and most importantly, out in the real world. So each episode, I host one of the world's greatest storytellers to help break down the art and science of storytelling as a system, not just a skill. That means how stories create connection, how they move people emotionally, and ultimately, how they drive action. So if you want to learn to tell stories that do more than just sound good, but they actually achieve something, then this, dear storyteller, is the show for you. What's up, storytellers? Welcome back to the Storytelling Lab podcast. Today, my guest is Joe Lazer. Now, Joe started off as a journalist. He then became a marketer and a content strategist, and he is currently the author of the new book, Super Skill. And Joe argues in this book and on his platform that storytelling not only is a valuable skill in the age of AI, but it is, in fact, your superpower. Now, Joe has spent at least the last decade deep into the content world. He was a co-founder of Contently, and he's worked with many major brands, educating them on the power and the neuroscience behind storytelling. But when AI came out, he had this little epiphany where everybody else started running scared. He started asking questions. He started asking the right questions, and all of these questions led him down this rabbit hole that eventually became this book, Super Skill. And in this conversation, we talk about that book, but we talk more importantly about this intersection that we are seeing. And I argue that Joe exists right at the cross of this intersection between technology and AI and human-centric storytelling. Can they both coexist? Are they mutually exclusive? These are the questions that we talk about. Joe is an expert in this space, in this landscape. So I was so excited to have him on the show to talk about this book. And I told him too, I got to say, like months ago when I saw the cover of the book, I just thought it was gorgeous. You got to see it, but it's like this, I often talk about the narrative thread, right? And so it's got this, it's black and white, and it's got this colorful like helix shape, rainbow helix shape going through. And to me, it just speaks volumes to the essence of storytelling and how it cuts through everything. That is the shiny, colorful rainbow through the black and white binary world of technology. I hope that's what he was going for. I just came up with that as right here as I'm sitting here, and I think it is beautifully poetic. Anyways, this conversation is going to be so valuable for you as you move forward in this age of AI, in this age of technology, and instead of running from it, leaning into it and understanding how to use your human side with the technology instead of these being two opposing forces. So here is my conversation with Joe Lazer, and I hope that you love it. Joe, welcome to the Storytelling Lab.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you here. I'm excited to talk about all things storytelling and most things AI. I think this is a really interesting intersection. So I'm particularly selfishly excited to kind of pick your brain a little bit about said intersection. One of the things that I saw that you said that I just want to use as a jumping off point, I'll rephrase it in a question for us. The question directly is, why will AI make storytelling the most important skill of all?
So I think there's a couple of things that we're seeing going on right now, and that was the impetus for me writing, my new book, Super Skill, which is a trend that I started noticing in 2023 after ChatGPT came out. ChatGPT came out a few weeks after the birth of my son, Max. And like a lot of creatives, right, I was thrown into this existential crisis around AI. I got on paternity leave, got back to my apartment here in Brooklyn, and in between the feedings, the dirty diapers, I was like, oh, what the hell? Because that was the point where, ChatGPT hit 100 million users in record time. You had all of the LinkedIn bros prophesizing that storytellers and creatives were absolutely cooked. You had Deloitte, McKinsey coming out with their research saying it's going to wipe out entire content teams, because we were at this moment, right, where it felt like aliens had landed on Earth and suddenly they just really wanted to write blog posts for you. Like that was their mission. That's all they wanted. So for me, I got obsessed with this question. And luckily at the time I was running marketing for this company, A-Team. It's an AI future work company. We just raised $60 million. Nice. And my marketing programs are always built around thought leadership, storytelling, events. So I basically was able to co-opt that program to our thought leadership program and our marketing program to try and answer this question, right? Of like, what skills were AI actually going to replace? What impact was this actually going to have? So, the journalist, I just tend to be skeptical on the original narratives we get around tech. They tend to be wrong, right? Everything we heard around social media, it's going to spread democracy, it's going to save the world, tends to not exactly play out the way that it seems at first. And so as I started hosting this generative AI salon series, event series in downtown New York, talking to a lot of future of work researchers, talking to a lot of AI developers, talking to corporate leaders, what I started to realize is that a couple things were going to happen. And this was around the midpoint of 2023, which was, we're just going to see our feeds flooded with more and more AI slop. And that in turn was going to increase the value of people who could tell really genuine, authentic human stories. And the second thing that was going to happen is that if you actually look at how AI is trained and how reasoning models work, that AI was going to get better at technical skills like coding and data analysis much faster than it was at storytelling, because it's much easier to objectively define what is correct code, right? You run it, it works. Yeah. What is good data analysis? The maths. But with storytelling, it's much more ephemeral. And it's a lot of AI researchers have called it absurd trying to quantify what good writing or what good storytelling is. Point. And so much of how storytelling works is baked into it being a cognitive and social technology for us, right? We use storytelling for connection. So also the human really matters in storytelling. So when you look at that equation, right, you have storytelling, A, increasing the value as we get flooded with slop. B, it's going to take over technical tasks, but increase the value of the relational aspects of work, right? Rallying people around a vision, navigating, getting 6 stakeholders around an idea, building a culture, inspiring a team, persuading and selling to enterprise clients, which happens on an emotional level, not a rational level. That is why storytelling becomes more and more actually more powerful, counterintuitive to what we think, in an age where AI takes off more and more work, right? Because what really matters now is not, can I fill out Salesforce correctly? Can I do this formula in Excel? Can I code this app? But can I build relationships with people to rally them around an idea, to win the narrative in my category, to drive the attention and win the trust of people that I need to work with? And I think we're seeing that bear out more and more now, right? When I started working on this book a couple of years ago, people thought I was generally nuts. Now I think we're seeing with the viral Forbes storytelling article and that wave, and the wave of companies paying big bucks, especially AI companies, for storytellers, that this is coming true to an extent. And I think we're only going to see that increase over the next couple of years.
It's so funny how in 2 years, like, those headlines completely flip-flopped. Between storytellers are cooked to, like, we all need storytellers.
Yeah. You make certain bets on narratives, and luckily
it's a good point about the hype with technology is generally overhyped. Historically. Let's flip that then. How do you feel about what some in our space, the more cynical ones, I might say, in the storytelling space, kind of roll their eyes at those articles that have come out, and how it seems to be the hype now, towards storytelling? What are your thoughts, knowing that from a journalist background, seeing those patterns over history about, when things get hyped like that in technologies? Do you feel like the current trendiness, if you will, the current hype, is a good thing or bad thing?
The nature of social media is to be cynical, right? But I think there's
Fair.
also some scar tissue from a decade ago when we had the first content marketing wave and every brand wanted to be a publisher. I was a big part of being in the middle of that, driving that at Contently. Um, but what I saw then, right, being very steeped inside of what those brands were doing, is that there's a fundamental flaw in that era, which is that it was like this if we build it, they will come attitude towards publishing. They'd be like, yeah, we're going to be like Amex or Red Bull, and we're just going to like build this separate website that has content on it, and magically it's going to return ROI, right? It wasn't even integrated into marketing, nevertheless, the rest of the company. And so, of course, it failed. I'd actually argue that content marketing has succeeded almost to its own detriment over the last decade because eventually people realized that can't really buy attention. Demand gen teams took over content more and more, started using it to flood the feeds with a bunch of SEO slop to try and play like the basic funnel game, which is now eroding with AI search. But this new wave of storytelling is fundamentally different than that first wave because it actually isn't all about marketing anymore in the first place. Like where you see this investment coming inside of these big AI companies who have realized first, right, because they were the first ones to go and try and use AI to automate all their content, saw that that shit doesn't work. Google will penalize it. Eventually, you're not going to stand out. You're not going to win the narrative around your industry. And narrative is really important in AI. We see that the AI industry is driven almost completely by narrative. You can have a piece of science fiction from Centinelli Research that literally moves the market, right? That to win that narrative, you need really good storytellers. But that storytelling initiative isn't just sitting within marketing, it's a CEO level initiative where that has to be embedded in everything that the company does, right? Both in terms of attracting the right researchers, employees, winning the narrative in your category, infusing it across sales, product engineering. So I think that's why it's fundamentally different. And then if we just look at marketing, right, we also just live in a different marketing environment than we did 10 years ago. You could get positive ROI through ad arbitrage in the mid 2010s on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can't do that anymore. It just doesn't work. You can't buy attention. You need to earn it. And so in order to do that, you need to develop unique IP that differentiates your brand and stands out. In B2B, that looks like having big idea, thought leadership, campaigns, platforms, research, books, not speaking from the voice of the brand, but speaking from the voice of the employees that people want to follow and gravitate towards. If you're in B2C, that looks like developing unique IPs and shows. It's why you have Gap hiring chief entertainment officers, right? Is because if you actually want to win in the discover algorithm driven feed, you need IP where when I'm hitting you with that first reel, right, and you're engaging with it, then Instagram or TikTok is going to test with the next reel. It has to feel like there's a narrative through line from the first thing that I saw for to win that engagement game one after another. So just the environment has changed so much that there are real business reasons behind the storytelling craze in a way that there wasn't really in the last wave. It wasn't being implemented in a way, but we've learned a lot over the last 10 years. So will like the term storyteller as like a job title go out of vogue in a couple of years? Like, yeah, probably. Like there's always like a new buzzword that we gravitate towards, but will the kind of fundamental components of how marketing works, of how AI is going to create an incentive structure for people to invest in personalities and voices that don't sound like, the mid AI crap that we get all over our feeds. I think that it certainly will continue to be a super valuable part of how we grow our businesses moving forward.
So what's the difference strategically? Like if a brand was interested in doing this, like creating content, creating IP, creating shows like we're talking about, what is the difference in what we saw 10 years ago where it was like, we want to be the next Red Bull, we're just going to create this second website and create content and hope, if you build it, they will come type of approach, to now people are, brands rather, creating actual shows? How are they approaching it differently? Are they able to identify the ROI on it currently, like more better than they did back then? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Well, one, discovery has changed, right?
Fair, yeah.
So we have shifted. We're in a post follower environment. So we're talking just purely on the B2C side, right? We're post follower now.
Yeah.
Anyone can start with an account from scratch. If the content is really good, you can build up an audience. You're going to get seen by people. And it's that dynamic. Like, do you read Rachel Carton ever?
I don't
Link
think
in
so.
bio. Great Substack newsletter. Like,
Oh, I'm
highly recommend
familiar
it to
with
everyone.
with link in bio, like the brand
Yeah,
name, but
yeah,
not her.
yeah. Her stuff is great. And I think she does the best job of anyone of kind of explaining how the funnel has changed around social
Yeah.
with the Discover uh, algorithm, which TikTok pioneered. The idea that we're not going to base what we show you on who you follow, but rather what we think that you like. These recommendations algorithms, which are now everywhere. They're on every platform. Even
Totally.
LinkedIn's new 360 brew algorithm is a Discover-based algorithm, where it's like Reels are that top of funnel layer where you can reach new audiences. And that is like the format that you want to use for that specific purpose. And so that opens up the ability to reach new audiences much better than it has before if the content is really good. And you're just much more likely to grab those audiences if there's a consistent theme, show, bit that you're hitting one after another. If I can recognize, oh, I like this one thing, and then if the second thing you're showing them is completely random and totally different from what you showed before, or just like brand promotional garbage, yeah, they're not going to engage with it. But if it is literally like a TV show, like a micro drama narrative that's playing out one episode after another, that's going to grab you and bring you in. And there's like a lot of really interesting examples on this going on. Bratz has a great one. One that's not branded that just gripped me this weekend is HBO Girls But Boys. Did you watch Girls?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I love Girls because
It's so
I
good.
literally was the same year, same
Right.
age as them growing up in New York as in post college years. But they just like flipped it and do it with boys living together, and like it's a great like little micro drama, and you can't help but getting pulled in every time that it comes up, right? Because it's this narrative that you're already invested in. You're already invested in these characters. So that's like the driving force behind it is this discovery layer that wasn't there before. And the fact that this now opens up opportunities for you to create IP that you can push onto the streamers who are becoming more and more open to branded content, right? You can reuse across channels. You can build actual fan communities around it, and then they can go a layer deeper, right? And then you can start to nurture them into more customer-centric down funnel content. But I think that discovery layer is the really big thing that's changed, as well as the intentional environment in which ads just aren't going to be the solution that are going to usurp content. It's really hard to think about how you attract new audiences in an ROI positive way without great content anymore.
Girls is such a great show. Like,
It's so fucking good.
It's
a criminally underrated show. Like, I will die on this hill.
I know I have a lot of like film bro friends that might criticize me, but I loved it, and I also lived in New York at that time. But it's making me think about it. I'm not like trying to force this in there, but like obviously good content, good show, good storytelling is going to attract viewers. But it does, now thinking about it, talking to you through this lens, it makes me think about the power of like the customer consumer relationship with the brand, because Girls was so authentic. It literally plucked out that subculture, right? And it was like perfectly represented. You knew, if you lived in Brooklyn at that time, which I did, and I think that you did too, or at least in the area, like you knew all those characters. They were so real, and nobody else, I don't think, could have done that as effectively as Lena Dunham did. I mean, that was like a perfect snapshot of that culture, I believe.
It was her capacity to like parody it, like to be able to see it in a way that is like parodying it at the same time as living it. I think is one of the most artistically genius things that I've seen. Like rewatching it now, I'm like, oh my God, like how is she able to kind of like make fun of this existence in that way? Is a way that I absolutely could not when I was 23 years old.
No.
Right? I was in the Lower East Side, so like on the other Manhattan flip side of that culture, but obviously it was like in Brooklyn constantly.
Yeah.
but it's like such a like a deep, authentic understanding of that experience and that like deeply human
Yeah.
storytelling. And also like in a lot of ways, she capitalized on the things that we rewarded then, but especially reward now in our media environment, which is like controversy, right? Like she, used the fact that, she was getting naked every episode,
Yeah.
as a, like, I think a core part of how she wanted to tell that story and make it feel real. But it also became this lightning rod thing with a lot of assholes online criticizing her for it, but then helped also raise the audience and attention and profile of girls because like every weak Gawker and the Cut in New York Mag were writing about it.
Absolutely. Did you grow up in New York?
I grew up in Jersey, like 20 minutes past Lincoln Tunnel. So
Where
little
about?
short bus, Passaic, yeah,
Passaic.
Passaic,
Okay.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
If you like were paying attention to the 2025 New
Oh,
Jersey governor's race, everyone was obsessed with Passaic as like a bellwether county and town because it was like a heavily Hispanic town
yeah.
that swung to Trump in 2024 and then swung back in 2025. So there was a lot of like Harry Enton on CNN, like breaking down
Gotcha.
my neighborhood going on. So it's like no one's ever talked about Passaic, New Jersey in their life, but now they're talking about it.
I mean, that must have been where I heard the name, as it hasn't been. I feel like it's been in a film too. I might have to look that up and
Not
get back
really.
to you. No?
Like Clerks wasn't far from there, but it wasn't
Yeah.
in Passaic. Like that video store in Bodega I actually
Yeah.
like knew when I was a kid.
That's funny. I just heard. I was just at an event in LA where Kevin Smith was the keynote talking about those days.
Oh, nice.
Breaking in. That's actually something you
Yeah.
might dig. This is a side note, not necessarily a plug,
Yeah.
but I work with them. There's an event that they're doing now in London, but in New York and LA called Storytelling 360. And it's just people in the film industry. So television, there's like a television panel. There's a lit agent, a lit manager, an agent and producer panel, and then there's like a film panel. Mostly just talking about how to break in the industry now, and also just how people got their first stories made, their first scripts made,
That's
and all
dope.
that. Yeah, I'll let you know when the New York one comes
Yeah.
up. You might dig that. So you had mentioned earlier about being a journalist. Maybe not so surprisingly, a lot of my guests have that background. No matter where they like eventually landed in the storytelling sphere, what are the lessons that you've learned from your journalism background that have carried you through? I mean, the work you did at Contently, the work you're doing now at this kind of AI meets the storytelling space. How much of that came from that part of your life?
Yeah, I think it just comes out of being curious, wanting to talk to people and unearth those stories. Yeah, I think that's like the biggest driver. And that's why I think why journalism ends up being such a great skill for so many people who go into different fields. Contently was my pathway into the dark side of marketing because, it was a company founded by journalists to help a network of journalists get high-paying work with brands to keep their careers going. So if you're a staff writer at the Financial Times or Wall Street Journal, you get paid like $2-3 grand to ghostwrite something for Chase or Bank of America. And so as I, even started transferring from being a pure journalist to being editor-in-chief at Contently, I think having the skills to go and be able to talk to people, like whether it was customers, if we're doing like a piece of customer storytelling, to interview folks on stage, to go out and find out like what's really happening in our industry, like doing investigative pieces on how Facebook was changing their algorithm to, doing original research where you're bringing new information and fuel into the industry instead of just like aggregating or doing thought pieces on things that other people were creating. I think that's the differentiator. And if we like tie this back to the AI moment that we're in right now, it's like AI can go out there and it can aggregate and it can distill all of the information that already exists. But in turn, what makes really, really valuable is, can you bring new insights into the game, right? Can you pull, whether it's new data that your company has that's going to illuminate a different angle on where your industry is headed, whether it's reporting that you're doing. What AI can't do is show up somewhere and talk to someone and pull out information that doesn't exist online, right? It can't have the type of conversations that's going to get someone to share their story in a way that hasn't been told before. So I think that's why journalism ends up being such a powerful skill for so many different people, whether in, marketing or Hollywood or whatever career you might have. Like that's a common thread you see from so many, journalists that go on to do different things.
How do if we forecast into the future, we can even use maybe not a case study, but thinking about like a brand who's trying to employ the human aspects of storytelling, but also obviously leverage the technological tools available to them in the efforts of growth. How do we ride that line, like moving forward? How do they work together?
Yeah.
How do they integrate?
Yeah, like great. I use AI every day. I have
Sure.
AI workflows that are set up. So I think there's a couple things you can think about. The first is so much of the work that we do is not strategic or creatively meaningful. Like it's a lot of bullshit, pseudo work, shallow work that occupies our day. So just starting with like great creative work, great strategic work just takes time. It takes time to think, it takes time to work, it takes time to pursue directions that don't bear out. So simply starting by using AI to automate a lot of that shallow work in your day, those tasks that don't require your special sauce or cognitive engagement, like building that executive assistant for yourself. That's one really obvious opportunity that a lot of people can capitalize on with AI. And then I think how you use AI and the order that you use AI matters a lot in the creative process. You look at a lot of the studies around AI and creativity and skill development. And what they find is that if you just turn to AI first, right, you do a heavy outsourcing to AI, you see cognitive atrophy and you see a decline in skills mastery. Anthropic's own research finds that when people heavily rely on AI for developing new skills, you see a 17% drop in skill mastery versus people who use AI as more of a thinking partner. So formulating your own ideas, trying to solve the problems first, then turning to AI to troubleshoot as a thinking partner, the way that we ideate, the way that we actually develop creative new ideas as humans happen more in these small leaps of where idea A leads to idea B, leads to idea C, like bad ideas as catalysts for great ideas, as opposed to in these big leaps of eureka moments, right, where the light bulb goes off, like in the movies. So AI can help with all of that, right? It can help us do research more deeply and much more effectively. We can use AI to bring the voice of our customers and audiences into the room by building synthetic personas and getting new perspectives that we might not get there otherwise. But it's like, how cognitively engaged are you in the work that you're doing constantly? That's the crucial part of using AI. And it's a trap that's so easy to fall into because it's so easy to be like, oh, this like looks like a fairly impressive output that I got. I feel so productive. I feel like a magician. But then when you look a layer deeper, right, you're not in there at all. Your voice, your perspective, your thoughts are not in there at all. And then how valuable are you in that equation if people can't see you in the work at all, right? And you're just passing around that very average AI output.
Absolutely. And I think this will probably improve, maybe certainly improve, but it's also it's for me, it's still so very flawed that how much people rely on it, whether it's to generate ideas or just, they take what it might send back to them as fact, is wild to me. Like I struggle with use of AI. I'll give you an example. Like my background's in documentary filmmaking, so often I'll use it to process interview transcripts and find through lines or find things that we've talked about. Almost all of these interviews have been conducted by me, so it will effectively hallucinate, as they say, or just summarize something that's not a verbatim quote. If I'm looking for something, like tell me when we talked, where's the time code where we talked about this thing. And it will just make shit up. And if I were to just take that and run with it, then I'd be citing a bunch of quotes that were never uttered by a person. And so like, I think they also have to be careful, besides losing your voice and losing your ability and capability, is the how reliable it can be at times, or unreliable.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. I think you have to be really diligent around it. I think what I would say, though, is that if there's a part of AI that I feel fairly confident is going to get better because
Right.
it has been getting drastically better,
Yeah.
it is that hallucination piece. Like the accuracy of like Claude Opus 4.6 compared to like, ChatGPT 4 in accuracy is fairly tremendous if you're using it. And there's much more like tricks you can do on the back end to prompt it to not hallucinate to get to that accuracy. That being said, that does lead you to taking your hand off the wheel a little bit. But I think like I tend to harp on that less just because I think like over the next year or two,
I agree.
it is going to be like a problem that the AI companies likely solve almost all the way. But the like what role we play in it and using this technology, like that's not gonna go away. In fact, it's probably only gonna get worse as the use of these systems, A, like proliferates more, and B, we feel more and more pressured at our jobs to use them. Like the stories I hear right now where like people are getting graded on the performance reviews just so based on how much they use AI, not like using it well or to do great work or to like get the outcome or like do something great. Just like simply using AI for a set number of hours gets you a good performance review. Like that's fucking crazy.
I don't disagree.
The mindset of so many CEOs right now, like it makes me want to pull my hair out because they're just all in this pissing contest to like brag about how much they're forcing their employees to use AI without giving them any training, without any guardrails, without actually thinking about like what is the output that they're getting from this stuff. A lot of them barely know how to use it themselves. Like it's wild to me. This moment that we're in from like a management perspective. Yeah. Like tell me your story. Yeah. What have you seen?
No, I was part of a startup that we were creating family documentaries. Like you would get it for your grandparent or something, right, to kind of commemorate their lives. So we were doing these personal, professional documentaries about these life stories. So very, very human. Sure, we were looking at ways to optimize and streamline the production and post-production process with AI tools, of course, right? And there was a lot of things that we did to really speed that up and bring the cost down, yada yada yada. But it was still inherently human, like two humans talking to elicit the real like life lessons and the feelings you felt and through your lived experiences, et cetera, et cetera. And I had some partners that were leading just like that, like AI without it making sense, without any specific result tied to it. Like we got to do this. And it's like, no, we're actually trying to zig where everyone else is zagging. We're not trying to spit out the fastest thing. We're trying to go deeper. And ultimately it was just kind of like, it was one of many. I mean, this was a product that there really wasn't a scalable market for. People just aren't Googling like, life story documentary. There are a couple like books that saw that serve that customer base, but not like this. And so, but one of the main reasons was just kind of like not really seeing eye to eye on that value base, right? Like, no, we're not. We're trying not to do that. We're trying to be more human in this era where everything is going the opposite direction.
Yeah, I think it highlights another gap too. And I was talking about this yesterday in my podcast with my friend Shane Snow, who just wrapped a season of a spinoff of his kids' TV show. And he was talking, I was like asking him, right, like how you guys are using AI changed? What he said is, there's a lot of these theoretical use cases on the creative side, right, for like image generation of certain like scenes and like kind of these cut graphics because it's a animated and human, think like Who Framed Roger Rabbit style of filming, right? And you see these demos that work, they look really impressive, like in a LinkedIn feed or on X. And they work in theory in this one very specific context. But when you actually try to apply it on like a full shoot or in like a bigger storytelling project, it completely falls apart. Where it ends up working really well is you design these workflows to handle a lot of the admin shit, right? And streamline things, the tagging of images and shots. But then when you actually try and take the leap that a lot of the models would make you think that they can do from a creative standpoint, they fall apart. You know, it's like the difference between AI writing like one good 50-word paragraph that the New York Times tests, right? And do you prefer this writing versus writing an entire essay that's contextually coherent, or an entire story that's emotionally resonant and coherent? Like when you make AI zoom out and do the bigger thing, it struggles much more than in that like demo sandbox.
Of course. Absolutely. Here's a question. I know that you've been working with Verify My Writing. Is that right? Or
Yep,
aren't you a partner?
came on as a advisor for them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's also some friends of mine who had a film that has just came out recently that I think, have had the first like AI free stamp on the film. Like the whole process was done AI free. And I made a video about that, and somebody commented like nothing will be AI free, like completely AI free. And I pushed back. I was like, what do you mean? I mean, I know the capabilities are there in all processes in the filmmaking process, all stages of the filmmaking process, but you don't have to use those capabilities. I ended up just like getting away from that conversation because I couldn't tell if he was trolling or not. The question for you is, do you think, in terms of for you, we can talk about creating content or writing. In my world, it's filmmaking. Do you think we'll reach a point where AI will be embedded into everything? Or will we?
I think yes.
Okay.
I think yes. I think that from a workflow standpoint, it's going to be there. Of course, you could do it without it. I think some people will, but I think eventually just the tools are going to, everything that we're using from a workflow standpoint is going to have some degree of AI embedded within it, right? So that feels to me somewhat inevitable in terms of the consumer side products. And I think for every, not to say that you couldn't do it without it, right, as a really deliberative exercise, but I think for most people it's going to be. And I don't think that's bad, right? I do think that in that way it's going to allow people to tell stories that they couldn't before, and that we're going to have to just rethink what some of those like junior jobs on a film set look like. But then there's also an opportunity to level up what you're doing from just like pure tagging to, okay, like let's put together like the, you know, the daily cut instead, and make choices about like which take is the best, you know, and start to learn from that. I think for every storyteller, there's this bigger question of like, what is your line and promise to your audience? I think transparency matters so much there, you know? So it's like, for me, I just try and be very clear with my audience. I write about this in my book, I write about this in my newsletter, of like how I use AI. Like I will not publish words that have been written by AI, but I will use AI to help me with research. I think deep research is a great tool. I think Google is freaking broken, and I'd much rather, you know, do deep research with Claude than research the old-fashioned way with Google. I don't really see an ethical issue with that from my standpoint. I will use AI as a brainstorming, sparring partner. You know, if I need to get it unblocked, like I used it to help figure out what the structure of my book should be on late nights where I felt really stuck and I need, you know, someone to get feedback from. Like I'd have a, you know, CBD THC seltzer and like have a weird long conversation with Claude, you know, it's like, I, you know, use it to get feedback on what I've written by asking it to embody like this specific audience persona. Sometimes the feedback's good, sometimes it's not, but it allows me to get out of my own head a little bit, right? So I think everyone needs to know what those lines are. With Verify My Writing, the reason that I signed on is, you know, I think it's a useful tool for writers like me who want to show that none of the words that are in here were written by AI, and that if that trust is important to your audience, then it's something that you can show. Also, we're going to enter a world in which it's going to be, there's so much AI slop that we're already entering a moment where we've passed the tipping point. Over half of content now that's created is generated by AI. it's going to be much easier to label what was human generated than to label everything that's AI generated.
Yeah.
So I think that's the system we're going to have to develop anyway. And the underlying technology with Verify My Writing like has been proven to be damn near 100% effective in a bunch of large scale studies, which is why I signed on. I was actually really skeptical of whether we could trace this well enough, but I was convinced
Nice.
in the process of few conversations with Derek and really digging into the research. And I think that's going to be important. So whether it's like that stamp is then as AI gets better at, you know, doing film, right? If that's something that you think is important to your audience, get that stamp. Or maybe it's that like this is 100% human actors, but we did use AI on CGI. But I think like explaining that as a storyteller is going to be key. I think as a writer in the same way, like if you put that stamp on it, it becomes more valuable if your audience cares about it and you're trying to build trust with them.
Dude, the trust and transparency is absolutely the crux of it. And you know, the foundation of any relationship, I would argue. So that was beautifully stated. With Verify My Writing, does it, because I know that sometimes, you know, this is a conversation I see out there. Like, it can seem like it was written by AI. I know the classic ones, like the M dash. Like, I'm an M dash user, right? And there are other things that are now being flagged, if you will, as like sounding like AI, whatever. And it might genuinely be, you know, from that person. Does the Verify My Writing like show you what triggered its results? Does that make sense?
You know, I actually haven't seen personally a negative test come up yet. Because I think most of like I've used it up on my own writing. I haven't used AI, so I haven't seen that piece. It's like it's less like a plagiarism detector, right? Or like an AI detector tool that a teacher would use. It's more like I am a human who wants to get the badge to show that what I wrote was AI. I imagine that I'll have to actually ask Derek, as the founder. I imagine that if as a writer it flags something, it would show you what it flagged. What I would say is like the research behind like the back end AI model and technology that they are using, like in like all of the studies that have been done around it, like it's the only one that doesn't generate false flags. Like most of the AI detectors do generate false flags and they're really easy to manipulate. This specific model at least seems to be extremely effective at actually getting it right, which is great.
That is great. Before we go, let's talk about the book. I haven't had the chance to read it yet, but I love the cover so much. I told you that on LinkedIn a while back. Such a good job. Whoever the designer was, it's gorgeous, pal.
Thank you. I was a pain in the ass on it. So
I bet you were, buddy. You gotta be. I mean, it's such a, for those listening, like, if you care about it, right, and you care about your audience, like it is an excruciating process, like to get to every little minute detail.
I'm like, no, like I need the waves like in and out of the lettering like this. So hitting up my freelance creative director that I work with, and I'm like, how do I explain this like to the designer?
Dude,
like, how do I explain like what I want? He's like, here's what you need to say to him. So shout out to Brad. He's really the one who helped me actually like explain what I wanted.
It almost pissed me off a little bit, Joe. Because I liked it so much. I was like, damn this guy. So for those listening that might not be familiar with it, Super Skill is the name of the book. What's the main problem you're trying to solve here? What's the main point you're trying to convey to folks?
I think everyone right now is feeling this existential crisis moment, like I talked about at the top of the episode, right? Around what skills will matter most in the next stage of work. You know, what Super Skill argues is that as AI gets better at technical tasks, we have to ask ourselves, what is going to be our most valuable skill, even if AI gets 10 times, 100 times better? And the answer there is storytelling. It is the skill that has allowed us to rise up from a mid-rate species to these ultra-social learning machines that conquered the earth. I spent the last 10 years doing research and reporting on the behavioral and neuroscience of storytelling, and we see that it acts as this cognitive super skill that makes us better at leadership, persuasion, empathy, collaboration, all of the things that are going to matter most in a world of work in which our human-to-human relationships matter more than anything else. So the first part of the book is walking you through that science of storytelling, making that argument, And then the rest of the book is 15 principles for becoming a better storyteller in the AI age, with 3 key sections. The first is unlock. That's tapping into your core storytelling superpowers. A lot of us think we're not storytellers, but we all are born storytellers. My 3-year-old spends 99% of his time in Neverland, right? This kid is never in reality. I'm like, we got to go to school. He's like, no, we got to go on a rocket ship. We're going to the moon. He just saw the
sounds more
Artemis
fun.
launch. Yeah. We all identify as storytellers and artists when we're little. We lose that confidence as we grow older, but we all have those skills. So first part is allowing you to tap into those foundational storytelling superpowers that you have. The second section, unleash, gives you the principles to apply those in very specific contexts at work that are powerful. Developing, communicating a big idea, leadership, sales, building an audience. And the last section of the book, upgrade, focuses on how we think about using AI in our storytelling practice ethically and responsibly, and avoiding the dreaded vortex of mid, which is that gravitational force around AI that sucks us into mediocrity. If we want to win in this next age and win attention and build trust, you need to stand out in that upper right-hand quadrant, right? If you think of, sort of content on a low originality to high originality, low quality to high quality scale, AI is going to suck you into that middle, and you need to stand out there. So that's learning from a lot of recent AI research. It's learning from innovative experiments from AI artists like Holly Herndon, who built an own, vocal model of herself and used that to take back control of her IP from the AI giants, and exploring what that looks like and what the possibilities look like us for storytellers, and leveraging AI as a positive force instead of something that's, going to replace us or suck us into the trap of just producing more slop that floods the feeds. And the goal is that by the end of this book, you feel empowered to unleash those storytelling superpowers in your work life, whether you're a creative who wants to upgrade the way that you bring stories to life, that you explore the possibilities of what you can bring into being, to if you're an accountant or you're an operations person and you want to rethink what skills are going to matter most for you in developing your career. And the response to the book has been, fantastic so far. It was the #1 new release on Amazon. I'm getting to talk to a lot of really cool companies and their teams about the book and what they can learn for it. And for me, like, that's what it's all about, is like, it's a book that's packed with stories, slipped a little like creative nonfiction in there,
Yes.
humor essays, as a little sweetener. Just really wild stories of founders, shamans, filmmakers,
Nice.
novelists that we can learn from. And yeah, it was a joy to write. It's a joy to talk about. And yeah, I encourage everyone to check it out. You can find it everywhere books are sold, online. Also joelazer.com/superskill. You get like a bonus course if you upload your receipt there. You can also get it by subscribing to my Substack on a paid plan. I'll mail you a personalized signed copy, which a
Nice.
lot of people have done too.
Nice. And it introduced you to awesome podcasters and other
Yeah,
storytellers.
to have conversations like this. I now have an excuse to just, fuck off in the middle of the afternoon and talk shit about storytelling for an hour, which is all I really want to do. Like,
Yes,
I don't really
me too.
want a
That's
real
why I
job.
started
I just
this
want
show.
to, I just want to do this. Yeah, so I have a podcast too. It's just
I've
like,
been
why
doing
not?
this 8 years, pal.
Yeah, I want to talk about interesting ideas and not be in an all hands Zoom meeting where I'm thinking about drowning myself in the tub.
Last question. Speaking, you had mentioned your Substack. I've noticed that throughout your career, you've done a really good job at building communities, whether it be newsletter communities, but also I had commented recently on one of your posts about like the story slam that you hosted for the book launch, which I thought was such a good idea. Not just like a, hey, let's do a reading, or hey, come celebrate my like an album release party or listening party. I mean, but actually creating this community event, which you did. So the small question is, I'm interested to learn about like the story slam and your approach there. But the bigger question is, what's your approach to building and growing communities?
And I think there's something magical about bringing people
Isn't it?
together, right? it's something we did a lot at Contently. Like we'd have a bunch of freelancer happy hours, just bring everyone in our network. We used to have, for a while, we had a policy before the network got super big that like any freelancers could just come and work from the office and hang out. But then we would do
cool.
kind of monthly like happy hour sessions, like come here, an interesting editor, writer talk, get drunk, hang out. That spirit of like early 2010s New York tech, but something I always tried to bring through. At A-Team, did the generative AI salon in New York and built a great AI community there. And that, gave me some access to so many interesting people that ended up leading to this book. So there's like selfish reasons to it too. It's something that I'm trying to do more now, just purely on my own. The Story Slam was just, it's like when I finished the book, I was like, how would I want to celebrate this party? And it was clearly I want to get people together to tell great stories. I didn't want to make it about me, but I wanted to celebrate storytelling with storytelling. And I have so many friends who are fantastic storytellers. So invite them to come out, do a moth style event, 5-minute story around a theme. This one was spring break. So it could be either a vacation story or a story of transformation, which is like a broad enough theme, but like it gives someone like the kind of creative box, right, to unleash their kind of best narratives. And the stories like blew me away. They were so good. I'm a Sarah Lawrence boy too. Smaller board school just outside the city. So that's like very much the culture of there, and had a few Sarah Lawrence friends doing, of course, an incredible job. It's something I want to do more of in New York now, because it was like really it was not that hard to put together, and everyone really had a good time. And I got a pretty good rate on this bar and stage. So that was a Pete's Candy Store. Shout out to them. So that was great. I'm also trying to do that with my Substack too. Like I do a monthly. I launched the paid plan off of the book launch, and it's been successful. I've been on like the rising list on Substack.
Nice.
Shameless plug for most of it. Please subscribe so I can stay on there. Trying to hustle out here, trying not to get a real job. I started doing these monthly like content strategy, office hour, mastermind sessions. And that's really cool to get some subscribers in the room, and all of us can kind of learn from each other and bring what challenges we're facing, either in our personal content strategy or at the company we're working on, and just get advice from each other. And like, it's just really nice to like connect with other people that have shared interests and goals. So I just want to do more of that. It's like where I am in my career, I made a deliberate move to go away from like I'm being a full-time CMO for tech companies to like I want to do the stuff that brings me the most joy. And that's like speaking with teams, doing workshops with them, helping them tackle big things, and like those kind of consulting engagements, and then like just creating stuff. Like that's where it is, and bringing people together to like talk about what they're creating. Like it's what you're doing with this podcast, right? Is bring people, give them a chance, give them a stage to talk about what they're doing. Like that's such a generous thing to be doing. And I think that is what we need more of, right? We need more people coming together to tell our story, because it's such a better way to spend your day than lying in bed and doom scrolling on these addictive crack algorithms.
That's a whole nother conversation for us. But I agree wholeheartedly. I think that's a beautiful place for us to end. Connection is everything, and I appreciate you for connecting with me here on the show, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Congrats on everything, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
My name is Rain Bennett. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed that episode, do us a favor and subscribe to the podcast. If you're already a subscriber and you're enjoying the show, give us a review and let us know the value that you've gotten from it. We love to hear from our listeners and learn about the benefits that they're getting from the show. That's what fuels us, and that's what fuels the show. And if you've already subscribed and you've already reviewed it and you think there's someone else that would benefit from listening to this show, please share it with them. The more we grow, the more we can help you grow, and that's what we're here to do. Join us next time on the Storytelling Lab.